Yes, good afternoon. Sava here from Football Heritage TV. Today we're talking about Tottenham Hotspur's midfield. Before we do, smash the like button. Please subscribe. You know the drills now. We know the admin drills. But Tottenham Hotspur's midfield has been brilliant so far this season. The key words in there, though, are so far. Tottenham Hotspur, I think lots of fans would acknowledge this. We have quite a lightweight squad. So what does this mean for Tottenham's midfield moving forward? We're going to have a look at this because you can't play the same three players every single game of the season. We've got players that are going to the African Cup of Nations, players that are going to get suspended. Already we have seen that Basuma has got suspended. Papa Sarr is a young player. There's going to be peaks and troughs. I think we've seen it so far this season. He's had some brilliant games, some not so brilliant games. What you would expect from a young player playing in any position in the team, really. So you've got to protect those players. Then you look at the depth coming in behind Basuma, Maddison and Sarr, and it starts to look a bit weak, doesn't it? You've got Pierre Højbjerg, does a job, can't play the same way as the others, though, can't play with that high intensity, can't play with that driving through midfield. Ollie Skip, I will, pardon the pun, I will skip past him because he doesn't offer anything to me as a footballer, if I'm brutally honest. I think he is another Mason, Winks, Bentaleb, Tommy Carroll, Jake Livermore, Marnie, O'Hara. I think he's in exactly the same mould as them. Works hard, not really any quality in there at all. Then you've got the likes of Lo Celso, never really done anything for Spurs. This is his 5th season registered as a Tottenham Hotspur player, never really done anything, and lots of talk linking him away from the club in January, if not next summer. Then you've got Ndombele, who's out on loan at Galatasaray. Surely his Tottenham career is done. Again, another one that's in his 5th year as a registered Spurs player. So then you ask the question, what have Spurs got in midfield? Now, off the back of that, we've seen some great news this week, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is Rodrigo Bentancur. We knew he was back in training, but now we're hearing that he could be ready to start in 3 to 4 weeks. Now, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but before we do, I want to talk about a player that's been heavily linked with us for the last sort of 72 hours or so. Lots of publications are coming out with this, and it is Kalvin Phillips, the England midfielder who plays for Man City. Now, we all know that Kalvin Phillips was excellent for Leeds for a number of seasons. In fact, whilst he was at Leeds, in the 6 full-time seasons he had before he broke through as a kid, he played over 234 games in all competitions, was integral to them getting promoted, and was integral to them staying in the Premier League. He was a top midfielder. People were talking about this guy. Where does he go? Does he go to a big club? And of course, he got his move. He got the move to the big club. But did he go to the wrong big club? Now, what I mean by that is Man City are the best team in Europe. For sure, we know that. But when you are up against Rodri, how do you think you're going to get in that team? You've got other players in there now. Last season, they had players like Gundogan that would drop in there. This season, they've got players like Kovacic and Nunez that will drop in there. Rico Lewis is being used in that position. So by all intents and purposes, it looks like Kalvin Phillips is surplus to requirements. Now, this is a player I think that will probably cause divide. Is Kalvin Phillips the best midfielder you've ever seen? No, nowhere close. But do you know what you're going to get from Kalvin Phillips week in, week out? I think you do. Is he a Ange Postecoglou type player? I think he is. Now, I'm not saying I would buy him or I wouldn't. I can see the pros, I can see the cons. You've got a player there, if we look at the cons, you've had a player there that hasn't played prolifically now for a year and a half, still gets in the England team. But in a year and a half with Man City, he's only played 23 times. He's made 23 appearances and only 13 of those have been in the league. Now, you get it, bit part player, you're back up to Rodri and Gundogan and Kovacic, as we said, all these types of players. But what does that do? Does that leave a player chomping at the bit? I want to show you what I can do. Give me a new manager. Give me a new style of play. Show me some love. Put your arm around me. I will show you why everyone raved about me. Or does it completely destroy the confidence of, I've not played for a while. Am I the same player? Now, Kalvin Phillips isn't the silky smooth holding midfielder that people want to see. He isn't a Casemiro. He isn't a Rodri. He isn't a Declan Rice, but for me, he has got that superb engine that I think Postecoglou will like. Now, I'm not saying you buy him and he comes straight to the first team, but as I alluded to at the beginning of the video, for me, it's all about depth. I think the Spurs need depth badly. We all knew this in the summer. We all knew it wasn't going to happen in one window. So before I get all the usual trolls in the chat going, oh, we've only had one window. Yes, we've had one window, but moving forward, what are we going to do? Are we going to get depth? Is that the type of player Postecoglou wants to buy? So for me, I think it could be a good acquisition, depending on the player's attitude, depending on the player's mindset, depending on what plans we've got for Rodrigo Bentancur that we'll talk about in a minute, depending what's going to happen with Højbjerg and Lo Celso as outgoings. Lots of different moving parts, but it's just food for thought at this stage. So for me, I can see it would be a good signing. Would he be a number one starter? No, but I think you've got to have that squad depth. You've got to have 4, 5, 6 players in that midfield that you can rely upon. So let me know your thoughts on Kalvin Phillips. Moving away from Kalvin Phillips, you've got Rodrigo Bentancur. So we got the good news that in the last couple of days, the good news that Rodrigo Bentancur could be fit to start playing in 3 to 4 weeks. Now, we've known he's been back in training for some time now, and we were told that it was just some jogging, some stretching, wasn't joining in with the actual game time in the training or anything too strenuous. Now we're being told that within the month, he could be ready to start games. Now, there's pros and cons to this as well. Obviously, the pros are that he's a very good footballer. He's a midfielder that was our best player last season before he got injured, for sure. And he's silky, smooth. He's that foreign midfield technician, isn't he? You know, give me the ball. I'll do the elegant things. I'll make it look easy. There's no doubt in his quality. What there is doubt is how does he come back? Now, this isn't about Bentancur. This is about all footballers that go away and have a 9, 10-month injury. What do you come back like? There's going to be that build-up time to getting match fixed. There's obviously going to be a huge difference between training and then going straight into Premier League games. But more than that, it's the psychological side of it for me. When you're going to stretch for a ball, do you stretch as you would before, or does that injury niggle in the back of your mind? When driving forward with the ball, when racing into tackles, do you slow yourself down a little bit and think, hang on, I've just had a long-term injury? Not doubting him as a footballer. I need this to be really clear and concise here. Not doubting him as a footballer. We've seen it with players. Virgil van Dijk had a huge injury, never quite came back the same. Right? We've seen it with loads of players throughout the years. It is difficult to come back from that type of injury and be the same player. But if he can get back to that, he solves a lot of problems for us. Because Spurs, for me, do have a bit of a midfield conundrum. You've got Basuma and Sarr going to the African Cup of Nations in January. Højbjerg, as I've already said, Højbjerg and Skip, I don't think are quite good enough. Lo Celso, I don't think has got that engine. I don't think he's anywhere near a good enough footballer. I think everyone started hyping him up from some 15-minute cameos, 45-minute cameos in pre-season. So for me, there is going to be a huge gap there, and that is where Postecoglou's system works or it doesn't. That midfield three, the drive, the engine, the turning and going at players, the work rate, the tackling back, the ability to pull out wide and then squeeze in. So for me, it's going to be a really interesting watch to see what happens with Bentancur now. Obviously, we all hope he comes back, the player he was before, and we wish you the best of your recovery, Rodrigo. So hopefully we get what we had before. Then lots of reports in the last week or so that Højbjerg is wanted by Juventus and that Lo Celso is wanted by multiple clubs in Spain and in France. So you've got two players there that could be heading out. It means you have to get reinforcements in. And Kalvin Phillips' name is at the top of that list, whether it will be this week is at the top of that list as to whether it would be a loan, whether it would be a permanent signing. You've had people like Mikel Merino put in there. You've had Zubimendi, the two lads from Real Sociedad. Hatate of Celtic is another one that's mentioned a lot. So let me know your thoughts. What has to happen? For me, brilliant midfield three to start. After that, it really does look weak. So let me know your thoughts. Come on, you Spurs, and we'll be back tonight. We're going to do a watch-along of Spain versus Scotland in the Euro 2024 qualifier. Should be a good game with Spain chasing Scotland for top spot. We'll see you tonight. Take care. And as always, come on, you Spurs.